So while in Sweden for a high-stakes NATO summit, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that the United States has made, quote, slight progress in Iran peace talks. But it is also a warning that the United States and its allies may need a plan B if Iran refuses to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Take a look.
But I can tell you that what I hope there is, this is what I hope for, and this is the point I made, is we all would love to see an agreement with Iran in which the straits are open and they abandon their nuclear ambitions and so forth, their nuclear weapons ambitions. That's what we would all hope for, and that's what we're going to continue to work on, and that's what work is ongoing even as I speak to you now in that regard. But we also have to have a plan B, and plan B is, what if Iran refuses to open the straits? What if Iran decides we refuse to open the straits, we're going to own the straits, and we're going to charge tolls for it? Okay, at that point, something has to be done about it. And I would argue that there are countries represented here today that are more deeply impacted by this than even the United States is. So all I'm saying, and I've said, and I think this has been reiterated by others, there are other countries that agree with me on this, is that we have to start thinking about what do we do if a few weeks from now Iran decides we don't care, we're going to keep the straits closed, we're going to sink any ship that doesn't listen to us or doesn't pay us. Then someone's going to have to do something about it. Okay, they're not just going to voluntarily reopen the straits in that scenario.
Here now to weigh in, Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn. Senator, thanks so much for joining Hannity tonight.
Sure.
It's interesting what the president is doing right now. He is keeping the diplomatic option open, but he's also signaling not only to Iran, but the world that he wants to be close to the Situation Room. I mean, he's the president of the United States. They can make a Situation Room and skiff anywhere in the world for him to travel. But he wants them to know that he's ready at a moment's time. What do you predict?
What I think we have to realize is President Trump always negotiates from a position of strength, and likewise his team, led by Secretary Rubio and Vice President Vance and Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, are not giving up. They are determined that they are going to make certain that the strait is open, that Iran never has a nuclear weapon. And bear in mind, for 10 years, President Donald Trump has been saying Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. So indeed, they are working to get that done. We cannot have a toll system in the Strait of Hormuz. Think the message that would send to China, to Russia, to others that would say, hey, maybe we want to start doing that. And so the president is right. He is focused on this. He is staying in D.C. and close to that Situation Room so that he can assemble his team and take an action as quickly as it is needed.
You know, Senator, I think it's admirable. You know, the president comes in and he starts doing peace agreements all over the world. He truly likes peace. He has the border peace now, and he's ended conflicts, gotten hostages back. But, you know, as often I talk to generals and they say the enemy has a vote in these conflicts. And I look at Iran's public statements and they don't seem to want a deal. They almost seem to be taunting the president. Now, we know how this story is going to end if they continue to do that. But do you think something is happening differently privately?
Oh, indeed I do, Lawrence. Bear in mind that their economy is failing. They have ships and tankers that are loaded with oil, and they have Carg Island that is full. They have nowhere to put oil, and that is their revenue. Likewise, Secretary Bessent today placed sanctions on 9 Iranians that are linked to Hezbollah. Now, Iran is the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism. If you want to cut that money off, then going ahead and putting these sanctions in place is a positive step. But the president is determined, no nuclear weapon, the strait will be open. They have got to turn over this enriched uranium. Their navy is destroyed. Much of their infrastructure is destroyed. And let's be sure that Russia, China, North Korea, the other members of the axis of evil, are not propping Iran up.
Senator, it looks like even some Republicans are trying to block the president when it comes to funding. Are they going to get in line? Are they going to support the country? Are they going to put the country over party? Because The president needs all the tools necessary, and that includes the Department of War and our intelligence community, to end this the right way.
You are so right about that, and it is imperative that we pass that reconciliation bill. The American people want to see public safety. They want to see national security, and making certain that we go ahead and fund ICE and Border Patrol and TSA and the Secret Service and Homeland Security investigations and FEMA, for goodness sakes. Get it all funded for the rest of President Trump's term. That is important to do, and it is just unbelievable to me that there are some of the Democrats, and we're in this position because of the Democrats, who do not want to fund law enforcement. They want to abolish ICE, they want to defund federal law enforcement, and they are willing to use U.S. taxpayers, TSA, FEMA, these agencies as pawns in order to defund it. But it is backfiring on them, Lawrence. We're hearing it every single day from people all across this country. They want to see the border secure, they want to see their community safe, and they want people that have illegally entered the country to be deported.
Got to do this the right way. Got to finish the job. Senator, thanks so much for joining the program.
All right, thanks for watching. Check out my new podcast, Hanging Out with me, Sean Hannity. The big interviews, the debates you won't get anywhere else. Like and subscribe for new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday.